those things. Can you speak into that? Just like maybe your experience of high sensitivity and all the things.
hmm Yeah, I mean I very much lived that and still live it in like certain environments. But there is there is hope. Like you don't have to be just in the heavy anxiety all the time. Like there is ways to kind of help like move through it and kind of balance it into a way that's, you know, it serves you more. So yeah, but I like last time I talked a lot about just growing up and being sensitive and kind of absorbing everyone's emotions and the energies around me and not understanding it. So, and generally shutting down. But when I would go to school and any other social environments, I would it just would provoke a lot of anxiety. Public speaking, still that is like, even doing this, I was like sweating a
Mhm.
little bit beforehand. So,
Mhm.
so,
Sure.
but it can come, I mean, but we can manage it to where it can come down to a more balanced space
Mhm.
and working with your body more. But,
Absolutely. Yeah, yeah. Well, would you say, because yeah, I'm going to ask you more questions about this, but as I was thinking about this topic, because this is me too, guys. Like I'm highly sensitive. I'm an empath, and I only realized about a couple of years ago that maybe all the just stuff I feel in my body isn't even mine. Do you all resonate with that? Do you know what I'm talking about? Like you can, if you're empathic or if you're sensitive, you pick up on the energies around you, and so you can sense that in your body. And if you're there are ways to learn how to take care of yourself in such a way that's not so overwhelming, and that's exactly what we'll talk about. But just think a little bit about if that's, do you resonate with that? So give us some hearts or nod your head if you do resonate with, here's my husband, I know he resonates with it. But just feeling so much in your body, or like, like maybe you're like irritated out of nowhere that makes no sense to you, right?
mhm.
So can you speak to any of that, Sarah?
Yeah, just sometimes it would just feel like you would just get hit with something out of nowhere. And it's like I was just having, kind of in my own groove. And then it's like random fear, or random like sadness, or random anger just out of nowhere. And then you, and especially when you're a kid and like an adolescent, it's like you just assume that it's yours, or even as an adult, unless you're kind of engaging with people that have the same experience, but you assume it's yours. And then it can kind of turn into like a self like judgment shaming kind of space. It's like, well, there must be something wrong with me. So then it just kind of
Mhm.
feeds into this mental, pattern of, and then maybe people outside of you don't understand it as well, like family members, and it's like, why are you just emotional randomly? It's like, really, it's
Oh,
probably yours.
yeah.
I'm reflecting it back to
And
you.
it's
but
yours.
and then you maybe get the retaliation externally of like, you're
Mhm.
so emotional and sensitive, and then that
Mm.
creates this like shutting down, and then you're kind of afraid of people. It's like I can't express myself fully because I may
Mhm.
get punished in some way. Like that was, it's very
Mhm.
much like my programming, I guess I would say, of, so that can
Wow.
kind of create this anxiety. It's like, well, like I'm feeling all this, and I want to express, but then I can't because people may like push back on that. So then it just creates this tension inside, and then it can kind of just translate to like just anyone, like the
Mm.
anxiety of like, well, I don't know how this person's going to respond. They're probably going to
Mm.
reject me.
Right. So then you, um, just out of protection, you're creating distance in relationship, right?
Yeah.
Like just out of protection. So I want us all to take a breath, to give a lot of space to that, because you described it so just succinctly, I think. And I wonder how many of you all can relate to this right now. Let us know, raise your hand if you can relate, or just feel within yourself, is that familiar? Yeah. because there is a lot there for sure. How many of you resonate with this, like when that stuff happens, when you're feeling a lot, when you're feeling a ton of emotion, you don't know what to do with it, and you're getting not great feedback on from the outside, telling yourself this story, like you create this narrative that something is wrong with you, right? So how am I ever going to be in a real relationship if I'm this wiry? Like if I'm like, what is this? I didn't even know how to define this, but how am I even going to be in a relationship like this if something is just really, really wrong with me? Does anybody relate to that and resonate with that? Has that been your experience? So let's just take a breath. My husband says, yep. Garrett, and I really realized in the past couple of years how sensitive we both are. Like, so it's helped us take so much better care of ourselves, but it made our whole life just really make so much sense. So I'm both an empath and a highly sensitive person. My husband's very, very empathic, so he feels all the things from all the people. And if you're highly sensitive, you all, if you don't already know how to define this, it's basically like any sensory stimuli just hits you even harder. And the reason for that actually is neurologically in your brain, your blood vessels that take in sensory input are bigger and wider. So you literally are feeling things to a greater depth than the average person. So let's just pause and breathe. This can be a lot. Just take it in. Because the narrative that's so easy to create here is that there is something wrong with you. So that's a narrative that we get to pay attention to, and we get the opportunity now to agree or disagree with that. I very much disagree with that. There's something wrong with you. In Eastern cultures, 15% of the population is very highly sensitive. And we talk a lot about last week's spiritual giftedness. Do you see people beyond the veil? Do you see other creatures that people don't see? Like, do you see entities? Do you hear? I have more of a claircognizance, so I just get knowings, right? A lot of this comes from high sensitivities, and you may have been told that you're crazy, or you may have just thought that you're crazy. In Western culture has not historically been, I think the tide is turning slowly, but it's not been welcoming to people with high sensitivities. But more ancient cultures, these people were really revered. And because they have sight, they have knowing. So okay, so I'm going to read. So we've got some yeses. People are resonating. Yes, yes, yes. Is this familiar, you all? Yes. Oh, you're in the right place. This is exactly what we're talking about here. So the first thing I know for me is to become aware of the narrative. What have you told yourself about this? Like, what does it mean about you? So if you can let go of the narrative, this means anything bad about me. That's a huge first step. I'm going to say something real quick before I ask Sarah more questions. I know for me, what has really helped, because, a narrative can also become, well, can I even have relationships? Because if everybody thinks I'm crazy, am I just defective? Am I just even fit for a relationship if I'm this, like, all stories, right? So, but the more you reparent yourself, learn to work with your body, the more easeful just life in general becomes. And I'm going to ask Sarah to speak into this because she's lived a lot of this kind of life. But I know that's been my experience, is the more that you just, that it's an inside job. So the more you take care of yourself, because people with high sensitivities need different self-care than other people. It doesn't mean anybody is wrong. Like, nobody's wrong or bad. We're all just built differently. But if you have high sensitivities, then we get to take care of ourselves even better. And here's where it bridges over into what I teach so much, is about attracting conscious relationships. You build it within. The better you're taking care of yourself, the more easily you are going to start to attract people, because you become magnetic for people who will respect that about you, if that makes sense. So Sarah, I want you to start to talk about what has helped you with this. But I know for me, does it have anything to do with you taking much better care of yourself and just getting more in tune with your own body?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I think it comes in stages, but the big thing is like quality alone time. Sometimes, we could have the alone time, but it's still like we're just like just mindlessly like
Mhm.
watching a lot of
Scrolling.
shows, you know, scrolling,
Mhm.
still it's just being stimulated in some way. So
Mhm.
I just, yeah, emphasize the quality alone time. So, you know,
Mhm.
what like that looks like for me is a lot of meditation and just having that silence or having some sort of calming music. I definitely recommend like stuff without lyrics because that can be stimulating to the mind. You know, it's easy. It's like stories and your mind just bait for the
Uh-huh.
mind to kind of grab
Exactly.
onto. So maybe
Mm.
just something without lyrics. And yeah, a lot of alone time. I think just like contact with the earth. Um, and you know, like salt baths, just or and just things like that. But just like as much as you can, like low stimulation, like low lighting really helps me a lot. Like I have these fun lights in my
Mm.
room and they can do different colors. I usually have them like on pink and turn dim. And so just kind of being
Mm.
like treat yourself like a baby almost. Like what is a baby like, you know?
Yeah.
Soothing,
Yeah.
blankets warm. You just kind of
Mhm.
have to, yeah, like get into that routine. I think is
Mm.
important as well, like doing
Mm.
that daily or whatever you need. I think for me, I need that daily. And I'm lucky that people in my life respect that and know that about me, that it's like, yeah, I just need that, like being out of other people's energy and just to like fully go back inside and see what's going on, because that can be a thing too of just getting in your day-to-day life, just your attention getting so pulled externally because everything is so stimulating. And so
Mm.
actively just like pulling, giving that time to pull inward, which it kind of goes into another leg of um, unless you know there can be a lot of avoidance of that if you haven't done that before, because there's
Mhm.
probably a lot of old emotion in there and
Mhm.
things that are, you know, are dark or just not desirable. So there can be a lot of resistance. So knowing that as well, that the mind is probably gonna like come up with everything else to do, you know, like, oh,
Mhm.
I need
Like
to,
this is the time that you just are going to do your laundry. Like, okay,
yeah,
I'm gonna have quiet time, but you know what? Just the laundry I haven't done in a month and a half.
yes,
Now's the
yes,
time
this is
because
it.
anything. Garrett and I joke about that all the time. Like, when do we get our housework done? Well, it's when we go to meditate, right? Or
Yes.
it's when we go to take a call back and we're taking care of ourselves because the mind is just looking for
Yes.
anything. Yeah. So
Stimulation.
I want to pause there because there's such good stuff that I want to ask you about. But I want to first I want to read this comment with experience flow. Hell yeah. I've met you guys at a festival one time. There's
Oh,
a float,
fun.
a great float place. We would love to do that because Sarah and I do staff retreats and we're always looking for health
Yes.
things to do. So maybe we can go take a float.
That'd be
We
cool.
love that. Let's chat. I'd love to just, hear from you all what's worked to help you if you have anything. If not, it's cool because here's where we're going to talk about it and give you some ideas. But if you've done things that have worked for you, we'd love to hear. And also, please ask questions if you have them. This is Q&A. This is real talk. There's nothing we won't talk about here. So, yeah, let us know what's landing for you, what's worked for you, what questions you have. But Sarah, I want to ask you a question first. Do you find that, have you found that the better you take care of you, do you see that reflected in your outer environment, as in your relationships become a lot more um, respectful of your space? Have you found that?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. Which
Mm-hmm.
if you're tuned to that and kind of oriented, it's like that things can be a mirror, then it's such a gift because it's,
Mm-hmm.
or if I'm draining myself, like then it seems like people will start to pull on me more, like if I'm not giving myself that time. And but it is like when you see that mirror outside, it's like, oh wait, okay, I can reorient it, and so you
Mm-hmm.
can catch it a lot earlier. Because, yeah,
Hmm.
last
Yeah,
year, go ahead.
and but that's so important. I want to hang on to this for you, and I really want to highlight this for you all. Is that, I talk a lot about relationships are really my specialty, and I talk a lot about, when you feel just this anxiousness in your relationships, when you get that mirrored on the outside. So when you're not when you're not spending time within, have you noticed, or can you start noticing that that is reflected in your outer world? Sarah gave a great example there. When you are drained, the universe, you can start to see how the universe will mirror this in your outer world. It's just a reflection always. We're just have little reflective mirrors all around us. So you start to have people that will pull on you. Or are you treating yourself not well in another way, like not spending quality? My whole thing that I'm been healing from is not spending quality time with me. So I'll see that in my outer relationships when I feel really low. I'm like, where is everybody? It's like, well, have I spent time with me? So how many of you have been really afraid? Because I work with anxious attachment a lot in relationships. How many of you have been very afraid to have a lot of quality alone time because that means distance from the outer world for a bit? Like, does anybody resonate with, well, but if I don't pay attention to my outer relationships all the time, they might leave. I know that's a big wound of mine. If I turn my head for a second and take my eye off the ball, as in my eye off relationships, if I'm not fixing something, if I'm not tending to somebody, if I'm not checking on something, they might leave,
Mhm.
right? So what that's going to do is that's going to just keep that program running because what you're designing on the inside, your framework on the inside is going to be, well, there's just not much relationship here. So an anxiously type attachment on the outside too, there's not really much relationship there either. Is that making sense? I don't want to get too wordy, so let's just take a breath into that. But let us know if that resonates with you. Does that make sense? So you may feel some resistance, like Sarah's saying, like you will feel a lot of resistance when you start to do self-soothing techniques. I love how she described it's treating yourself like a baby. You are. A reparenting model, that's exactly what you're doing. You're going back what's soothing for a baby. That still works on us. That still works on us. I have blanket that Garrett got me. What's that called? Like a heavy, like a weighted blanket.
Mhm.
Give yourself a womb. Dark. That's such good stuff for highly sensitive people. Like we need a break from that stimulation. And yes, just like Sarah said, your mind will race and give you all kinds of reasons to not go within. Part of the reason is because it's just you taking care of yourself in this beautiful way. It may just be unfamiliar. And the ego, aka the mind, is designed to keep you in the same pattern. So if you all of a sudden do something really nice for yourself, like self-soothe, turn on light music, turn on the lights, give yourself a weighted blanket, make yourself a tea, that is unfamiliar. And so your ego is naturally going to resist it. So my advice there is just be aware of the chatter that starts to happen. Be aware of like, but I got my big thing, like my mind loves to tell me is like, I got to check something online real quick. Oh, an email might have come through. Do you need that right now? Oh, the answer is always no. You don't need to go check online right now. There's no way you have to do that. But just getting to be really aware of that mind chatter.
Mhm.
So keep letting us know if this is resonating with you and what questions you have. Because Sarah, you were also just about to talk about another reason that your mind will resist this is if you
Mhm.
have a lot of residual trapped emotion in the body.
Mhm.
Right. So is there anything that you can speak to there?
Yeah. I also, yeah, just wanted to touch on like when you do see that resistance come up, the mental resistance, because it will, like, it's
Mm-hmm.
just, it will,
It
like,
will.
um, instead of kind of getting pulled into like, oh, I shouldn't be thinking this, or oh, like getting pulled into the full mental story because it got you, then it got your attention. Then it's just when it does come up, just keep pulling your attention back to the sensory experience. It's just unplugging from the mind over and over again. So I just wanted to point out that like yeah, it will come up, but instead of kind of feeding into that, it's just like keep pulling back over and over again, from
Hmm.
unplugging over and over again, because then
Yeah.
over time the energy will decrease.
Yeah. That's a great point too. And I want to just kind of frame that a little bit too. What you just said is really important. So it's you're practicing being the witness. Have you all heard of that term? The observer. You are not your thoughts. You're not your mind. Those are just tools. You are the witness. You are the connection with the divine. So you are the observer of all these things. So like what Sarah's saying is that when you see these thoughts come up, we can easily just engage with a thought, like, and that's what the mind wants. It just wants to distract you. It's just smoke and mirrors. Like, just don't go over whatever you need to do to come back over here. That's what we want. So if
Yes.
you're engaging, so just notice it, try to not judge it, and then just use that as a cue to return right back to your body. And it is, like Sarah indicated, but it's a practice. This is a workout. Like you've built muscles all your life that are more geared toward distraction. So you're building muscles back to your body. So a very common meditation practice, we all think it's like the whole time. No, no, no. You know what it looks like? Oh, there's a thought. Okay, come back. Okay, there's another thought. Okay, just come back to my body. Okay, there's another one. Just come back. Right? Like that's normal.
Oh yeah.
Right.
Yeah, it's you're just pulling your attention like away from operating in like the duality of up and down, thoughts like flowing
Mm-hmm.
through, pulling it into the peace that's always available externally and
Mm-hmm.
your existence. So that's like kind of
Mm-hmm.
going on a rabbit hole, but um but yeah, so it is a workout, but it's just, and it doesn't, and it sounds kind of like boring, I think sometimes too. It's like, oh, that's too simple, like, but it's just that daily, like every day, like it, you're just shifting how you're operating, slowly over
Mm-hmm.
time, and that's what's going to create this just sustainable change and peace.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah, just little practices every day. And right before you talk about emotions, you have a question here. Thanks for your question. How do you deal with making really bad mistakes? I wonder, can you be any more specific on how we can support you with that? How to deal with making really bad mistakes? Um, so if you can specify that, I know we'd love to support you. My immediate thoughts with that are self-forgiveness, 100%. And honestly, my philosophy is there are no mistakes. Everything is fruitful, everything is needed. If you've wronged somebody, there is a healthy part of guilt that just that invites you into repair. So apologize. My husband and I are in a really, really deep practice of that. And that's what's part of what's made our relationship so strong is like, oh man, I went all survival skill on you. I own that. I'm so sorry. And then just let it go. So like really, really back to self-love. Any self-punishers out there, just like me, like you can just ruminate on like, oh, I made a mistake and you won't let yourself go forward. That's just really deep self-love stuff. But if you have a more specific around that, we'd love to support you. Until then, uh, can you speak, Sarah, just on the emotions piece, like why your mind might avoid being in your body because there's just a ton of emotion and what to do about that?
Yeah, and I think you spoke to it a little bit earlier about, I mean, that your mind just, it's trying to protect you because it thinks those emotions, like the whole event happening at the moment, it's just like stuck in the past in some way. And so, you think about like visualization, so powerful. Like you can, just by visualizing, you can create all these emotions, and so it kind of works the same way too. And that, like, maybe if an old emotion comes up, your brain is interpreting as like, this is happening in this moment right now, and so you're trying to kind of bring your body back into like seeing, wait, actually, I'm in a safe environment. I'm sitting in this chair and trying to
Mm-hmm.
meditate. It's hard. um, and so it's just that kind of that over and over again, um, pulling your attention back to seeing the safety and looking for peace in your environment. Um,
Mm-hmm.
but yeah, and so, but once you are moving into that quality alone time and making your body feel safe, it's just like it feels safe enough to like allow the old emotions to play through because it's like, well, I can move into that parasympathetic, space now that rest and digest. So it will come up, and there may be, mental resistance to that, of course, because it's like, no, don't look at this, don't feel this. So,
Mhm.
but it is just pulling back to just feeling like the sensory, like just like if it's anger or something, just feeling like that heat in your stomach, just in like the sensory experience of it, and not so much worrying about the story attached to the anger. It's just like the reality right now is I'm feeling this raging fire in my stomach. The story, whatever, and even that can be not exactly true because everyone interprets events differently. So getting just very into like the reality now, I'm feeling tension in my chest. So I'll, yeah, pause there.
Mhm. Yeah, no, it's beautiful. I think that's a great time to just pause and breathe into that. Because I want to again frame that because I think what you said is just so spot on. Sort of recap, a lot of why your mind will resist being in your body is because if you have residual emotion, which most of us do, I'm in the practice of releasing emotion every day with intention, right? So most of us are just walking around with tons of emotional energy that's just stuck. Because here's the thing: when an event happens, say something scary or something that made you really angry, you survive it and you get through it, and unless you release it, aka crying, screaming, or if it's joyful, you play, you get ecstatic, you do art. Unless you let the emotion fully express, it will get trapped in your body, in your physical body, in your cells, and in your nervous system. And when that's still in there, it keeps prompting the brain to say, this is still happening. The scary thing's still happening. It's still happening. It's happening right now. It's happening right now. You're definitely not safe. It's happening right now. Blah, blah, blah. So that's what it's doing. So what Sarah said earlier is that first you reground when the mind is being all resistant. Reground. Just know that, like, for example, all of you watching, you're safe right now. You wouldn't be watching an IG video if you're running from a tiger. I would say, stop that. I love you. Stop that. Put that phone down and run. That's not happening. You're all safe because you're watching an IG video. So you remind your body of that. You take a breath. You look around you with your senses. You touch something. You touch the ground, touch the floor. Remind yourself, I'm safe. I'm just uncomfortable.
Mm-hmm.
So the mind interprets uncomfortable as dangerous. It's not. Okay, so we reground and then work on just releasing the emotion. I do breath work every day, and part of that breath work that I do involves screaming. I scream every day, and it feels right. It collects any energy that's left over and just lets it all out. Emotion itself, you all, is only supposed to last 90 seconds tops. I think it's like 120 seconds, like at the max, max, max.
Mm-hmm.
It's fast. So if you just work on letting it out, you can do it through just letting yourself cry, scream, yell, dance, shake your body. Fear likes to be released through shaking. And women, we carry a lot of fear and stuff around our hip area, our root chakra and sacral chakra. So shaking that out, doing art, journaling,
Mm-hmm.
any of these things. I think of what else is there, but using your voice,
Mm-hmm.
expression, you're just letting that emotion out. And the more you do that, the more you're teaching your body that this emotion is not dangerous. And the more you're coming into relationship with your body, the more your body is going to be like, how do you feel after a really good cry? Most of us would say, it feels good. I feel way lighter. At the beginning, it's scary. I don't want to cry. Nobody just loves crying. But then it feels way better. So you're building that loving relationship with your body. And again, tying it right back to relationships, the more that you build this love within, the more you're going to start to see that reflected out, the more you're telling the universe what you're worth.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so let me pause there because we do have Okay. Okay, so thank you for clarifying your question, by the way. I guess I lost myself in my way. And if I made a mistake that hurt me, okay, and my friends, all right? Guilt and bad that I don't care about myself that much. So how do I connect better to yourself and take better care of yourself and people around you? Um, so Sunny, if I'm saying that right, I'm so sorry if I'm not. Thank you so much for clarifying and just for presencing. Um, oh, good. Yeah, honestly, it's exactly what we're talking about. Um, and this replay will be posted just like all the lives I do. I post the replays on my feed so you can come back and watch as much as you want. I love to take a walk and listen. That's why I take you all so many walks with me because that helps me just to process. But as much as you need to listen to this, so because basically you're talking about how do I just come into better relationship with myself. That's at the core of it. Because better relationship with yourself, you're gonna let yourself off the hook. You're gonna not punish yourself and worry about that mistake that you made.
Mhm.
Right? Does that make sense? I used to be what sent me to therapy. Like, I guess I went to my first therapy session like 9 years ago, but I was in this prison of just ruminating and constant, like 24/7, all the mistakes I made, all the awkward things I'd said. Why did I say that? They must hate me. They must think I'm stupid. Just constantly, never let myself off the hook, but just stay in this kind of guilt place. And I mean, the complicated but really simple answer there is self-love, which is exactly what we're talking about. We can answer quickly, but the practice, it is a practice. It's a lifestyle change, right?
Mhm.
So that's why that's why we like to offer our support to you through things like healing sessions and things, because it'll take more than just a live video to learn how to really do this. But once you learn it, it's so good. But by spending time with yourself, giving yourself space to self-soothe, release your emotion, getting to know yourself, getting to know what your body needs and your specific like blueprint, what it needs. The more you do that, the more you're going to love yourself in a parental way, which is to me that's the unconditional divine love. I'm giving myself the ultimate care. The easier it's going to be to let go of guilt, right?
Mhm.
Because for you and anybody of you can resonate with this, it's probably turned into shame at this point, which just means I'm a bad person, right? The easier it is just to release guilt easily. So remember, I used to hang on to guilt, just awe and shame, just all the time. But the more I cared for myself in these ways that we're talking about, the easier it became that if I did, you know, do something to wrong somebody or myself, you can say I'm sorry to myself too. I can just hold myself and say, oh, I'm sorry. Please forgive me. Thank you. I love you. It's the, I don't know if I can say it right. Is it the
Something,
Ho'oponopono?
yeah, I know I can kind
Ho'oponopono
of like
prayer.
see the word in my mind, but yeah,
I know it's
that's,
like
that's good.
H and a bunch of I's and a bunch of P's and a
Oh,
bunch of O's.
yes.
It's an ancient Hawaiian prayer, but it's so good. It's so just clearing. It goes, I'm
Mhm.
sorry. Please forgive me. Thank you. I love you. When I get, if I'm in a more survivor place and I yell at somebody in traffic, I'll say the prayer. I'll energetically say, I'm sorry. And the more
Mhm.
you love yourself and care for yourself, the more you can just let it go after that. That's what we're designed to do. If you do something that harms yourself or somebody else, I like to think in a part of what connects us in relationship is the ability to repair. So when I'm sorry, an acknowledgement. Oh, and that can be to yourself too. I'm so sorry I hurt you in this way. I'm seen, I'm acknowledged, and then just let it go.
Mhm.
Who's resonating with that? Awesome. Okay, let us know any more questions. We're going to start to bridge and wrap this up. So any questions that are unanswered, feel free to let us know. So we talked about self-soothing to really care for your sensitivities,
Mhm.
releasing emotion. Um, Anything else that Sarah that's coming to your mind on this topic? Ways to just care for yourself to make relationship life and just living life easeful if you're highly sensitive.
Yeah, I think a mental trap that I've fallen into with especially it's like romantic relationships and stuff, it's like it's got to look this certain way, or I need to be reaching these certain stages in a certain time frame, or maybe just other people's opinions about how things should be going. um, just knowing it's like, well, you operate differently, so your relationships are going to also operate differently as well. So I think for me, just knowing that I usually need to go quite a bit slower, and because it is like with a new partner, it's like you're becoming vulnerable, and you also, when you do have that opening, then you need to kind of go back to the groundings and the integrating to like stabilize it, because it's like if you just keep, rushing and going full, vulnerability without taking that time to integrate, it just like just goes to shit, it just like explodes. It's too much, like it's overwhelming. So I think just, yeah, knowing that there may be some stories of like from society that relationships maybe need to look a certain way, but you do it to like, you need to like listen to your body, and that will tell you what speed is good for you as well. And also like if your partner doesn't respect that, then it's like, well, maybe, maybe this isn't like a good fit for me here, because I do need someone that's gonna work, like treat me how I want to be treated as well. And
Exactly.
go
And well, because it's so I'm like, ooh, 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 want to capture it, just
yeah.
highlight everything you're saying. You must be channeling, because I don't know, it's so good, it's so wise. So I hope you all can hear that. I'm going to frame it to really send it home here. Is that, and two, the more that you love yourself, the easier it will be to say no to what's not working on the outside. Anxious attachment, when we're so stuck in survival, when your nervous system is just locked on in survival, it's really hard to let relationships go. It's more, I'll talk at some point soon about trauma bonds, but we can get into trauma bonded relationships that don't serve us well at all. But the more you do healing to your nervous system and your body, and you love yourself in that deeper parental way, the easier it will become to say no to a relationship that's not working, just like Sarah said. I've come to care for myself. How would it be? I want you to think about this for yourself and just breathe into this and feel into this, because this is so accessible to you. There's nothing different about us than you. This is so unbelievably accessible. How would it be when you care for yourself so much that somebody comes along who doesn't respect your speed, to just be able to let that go? To not even make that person wrong, or don't demonize that person, but just let it go. Okay. Because then what you're doing is sending a massive message to the universe about what you're worth and what you're ready for, right? So your no's are very, very powerful, maybe even more powerful than your yeses sometimes. I don't know. Your no's are really powerful. So I really want to highlight again what Sarah was saying about relationships. There's no playbook, there's no benchmark for how relationships should go, or the speed, or I get a lot of questions like that, but that does not exist. And I completely agree. If you're highly sensitive, you probably need to move a little differently in relationships. You need more time to integrate. Looking at Garrett and I have been together over 11 years now, working on 12. And looking back, before I learned it, we got together before I knew any of this about myself. So we did a lot of work together. But looking back, I'm like, oh, I needed so much. That's why I needed so much time to integrate after we just had a fight, but then repaired. Here's the thing about me, I'm highly sensitive. If we have a big fight and then we repair and we're good, my nervous system is still, so I still need time. He's less sensitive than me in that way. So once we're good, he's good and he's all back. What I've learned to say to him, and it's worked so beautifully for us, because he's willing to do the work also. I'll say, honey, I'm good. My nervous system isn't yet. I just need time to come down. And they'll say, great, I'll be here when you're ready. And I go take more time to self-soothe. So integrate's a great word that you use there, because I need that time to integrate all what's just happened and just de-stimulate myself.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So, and again, because I want to keep driving this point home, the more you are willing to step up and do this for you, the more you will clear out old relationships that don't serve you well. You get to trust. You get to trust that you're not going to die without those relationships, because you won't. That's what your survivor brain thinks. It literally does. Thinks that you're going to die without those relationships. You won't. And that there's so much better on the other side of it. Sarah and I both can say this from experience now. We've cleared out a lot of relationships. 10 years ago, I barely had anybody in my life from 10 years ago. Barely. I guess I had like my mom.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Yeah.
So, but it's so mind-blowingly better now. And that is a complete result of how I have learned to love myself and keep learning. It keeps getting better. I'm not done. I'll never be done, just like any of you. I'm in here with it with you. And so, Sarah, but it just keeps getting better. There's always better on the other side. If you keep stepping up into your self-care, the universe is just going to say, all right, sis, like that's what you're ready for? Cool. Thanks for letting me know.
Mm-hmm.
So there's no benchmark. There's no certain way a relationship should look. I may even make a post about that because that's so good. Excellent. Any other quick questions, you all? You're so welcome. Sunny. Yes, apologize to yourself as well, of course. Yeah, any last insights or anything you'd like to presence with us so we can support you and just see you? Otherwise, we deeply see and we feel everybody who's been on here. We feel you. We're empathic, so we feel you. But we know how to care for ourselves, so it's in such a way that's so filling and so joyful. So any last quick questions before we wrap up are welcome. And just know this will be posted. And again, so Sarah is a healer in our practice as well. She also does deep trauma-informed therapies, coaching, and also she's a Reiki master. And she has this great Magdalene package where she does both. And I think that's been the favorite, right? Like, hasn't that been kind of the favorite of people? Yeah, and that's the one my husband did at first. And it's because, again, if you're sensitive, a lot happens in Reiki. So it's like, it's so good to have a grounding container afterward. But basically you do a Reiki session, and then you have a therapeutic session right after that. Just really ground in everything that happened in the Reiki. So if you DM me, direct message me to book a call with Sarah, I'll take care. I'll help you navigate it. She's offering 50% off of all of her services if you book by Friday. There's a lot of energy with that. So that means it's really powerful. Very powerful sessions.
Clear
So direct message me by Friday. Yeah. So just direct message me by Friday if you want to book a 50% off session with her. She would just so love to support you. Again, she's so talented. Sarah, any last just pops that want to show up in here?
I don't think so. I think it's just
Or maybe
a reframe that, that it's that just because maybe you're different from the societal norm doesn't mean something's wrong with you, or that you should change yourself to fit other people, because your body knows best, and the world would be boring if everyone was the same. And you get the gift of really deeply experiencing life and feeling things deeply and being able to connect more deeply with people. And I think just reframing it, that it's like there's so much beauty that you have available to you, being highly sensitive. And it's just that, you just need to operate differently to be able to support all that emotion and love. And that's totally cool. And
so beautifully said, and I'm so glad I asked, because just a ton of nuggets just rolled out from there. And of course, you say it beautifully because this is your zone of genius. But I completely agree, you all, and I hope you're receiving that. That just a reminder, and it's always a good reminder for me of the beauty. I love how you say that. It's the beauty you have available to you, because you feel things deeper, yes. So guess what? You can also think of how deeply you can love like
Mhm.
that. And I know my experience in relationships is that, what suits me best, I don't have, I have, friends and things, but I like a few that I go really deep with. That
Mhm.
just works really well for me. And the depth that's available to you, the depth of beauty, the depth of fulfillment, the depth of experience, of pleasure, of everything that's available once you learn to work with your body. Not only learn it, but when you commit to giving yourself that gift, when you love yourself enough, just the deep well of everything beautiful available to you. Depth. It's a gift. We just get to learn to work with it.
Mhm.
Mm. Oh, well, Sarah, thank you so much for being on. Again, you all DM me if you want to book a call with her. Just DM me by Friday if you want to get a 50% off gift. Her sessions are so healing, as you can probably tell from just this little bit. So, Sarah, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Of course, you all, this will be posted on the replay. And join me here next Monday, and we'll keep talking. Let me know what you guys want to hear about because I take suggestions on any and all things relationships. Okay. All right. Thank you, Sarah. Love you all.
Bye.
We'll